She was a fearless SWAT officer on a silent mission. He was a wounded college kid with no way out.
Down!
And
Get
Echo,
on the ground
her
now.
loyal canine
Move
partner,
it.
was the only thing standing between life and death on a frozen ridge. When the world turned its back, they chose each other. What happened next? A moment of sacrifice that will tear your heart open and rebuild it stronger. If you're ready for a story of courage, loyalty, and love in the darkest places, hit subscribe, give this video a like, share it with someone who needs hope today, and comment below to join our growing community. The cold on Carson Ridge didn't just bite, it hunted. It slithered through seams, gnawed on fingertips, and settled into bones like a prophecy. Wind cut across the jagged spine of the Rockies and carried with it a snow as sharp as glass splinters. No one with common sense would be up here, which was why she was. Ava Hartley adjusted the scope of her rifle and exhaled, a thin puff of frozen vapor drifting away from her face. Her body pressed low against the shoulder of the mountain, merged into the snow, a ghost in matte camouflage. A stillness so absolute it hurt. Next to her, Echo didn't move. 90 pounds of sinewed focus, ears tuned forward like a live antenna. Even the snow that settled along his sable back seemed afraid to slide. German Shepherd, Canine Tactical, War Dog. But to Ava, he was more and less depending on the day. Some mornings, he was the only heartbeat she trusted. "Almost dawn, buddy," she murmured. Echo's ears flicked, nothing else. 200 yards below them, through Ava's scope, lay the Volkov compound, a stitched-together collection of steel huts and prefabricated outposts, nestled like a scar in the mountainside. Razor wire lined the perimeter, cutting through the snow like a crown of thorns. Armed men, sloppy in gait but savage in nature, moved in shifting, uneven rotations. Ava watched them with the cold objectivity of a professional. Jaw tight beneath a black balaclava, eyes the color of shadowed frost. At 34, she still carried the strength of youth, but the scars of service had changed the lines around her eyes. They weren't tired. They were armored. 2 days. That's how long she and Echo had maintained position without relief, her belly living off rations no warmer than her conscience. Her job was simple: observe and report. Intercept the cargo route. Locate the weapons stash. That was before the shack. She didn't see it at first. The place barely existed in the architecture of the compound, hidden as if the builders themselves wanted to forget it. A sullen, concrete hut half buried beneath snowdrift, segregated far from the central barracks. It wasn't on the schematic she'd memorized, which meant it was important. Ava shifted the nozzle of the scope, adjusting focus, and then she saw it. 2 guards dragging someone, out of the back of a black 4x4. A small frame, slender, head covered in burlap, hands bound with coarse cord, knees buckling in the snow. "Hostage," Ava whispered. Echo's head turned slightly, tracking the figure with his dark almond eyes. Her gut clenched. Her pulse didn't. The guards shoved the captive toward the bunker. It didn't take training to recognize cruelty. It was there, in the shove, the mocking laughter, the disregard. Ava didn't twitch, didn't blink. Training said, stay still, log, report. You don't move unless the directive changes. but something beneath her chest moved anyway. Something she'd buried deep. A blonde wisp slipped out from under the burlap as the captive slipped on ice. Pale hair, tangled and matted. American. Ava froze. In another life, the kind she didn't speak of, that could have been her. Or her sister. Something burned inside her like the slow waking of an ache that had never fully healed. She blinked. Became the mission again. She pulled a directional mic from her pack, set the parabolic dish on its tripod and aimed it toward a nearby heated hut where a man in a fur-lined coat stepped outside. Fur coat. Clean shoes. Authority that didn't need proof. The one they'd referred to in the briefing files as the warden. His voice boomed as the wind sliced through. The buyers are moving everything up. Midnight delay. All assets move by 0500. Her heart surged. This couldn't be coincidence. But then, the wind roared, like a living, screaming thing. She adjusted gain, fingers numb, useless. The critical words, stolen. She'd failed. Her lips pressed to a line. There's no fury like the quiet of a mission dying inside you. But then fate, or sheer incompetence, blessed her. A smaller man burst out of the barracks, skinny, twitching, overcompensating for a lifetime of being ignored. Lieutenant Vash. He barked orders at the guards, pulled off the burlap hood. The captive blinked into the cold light, face streaked, scared, but eyes burning like a cornered animal. A young man, 22 maybe, blonde hair. American college student by the look. Alabaster skin turning purple from frost. Not military. A kid. Get her ready for transfer. Kilo Zeta 9044, and don't be late, Vash shrieked. Ava's grip on the mic tightened. Echo shifted beside her, reading the tension. She'd heard that code before, not the numbers, but the tone. Arrogant, afraid. A little man in a big coat and borrowed power. The weapons likely being routed elsewhere. The boy, insurance. And the mission, now impossible. She had 2 hours to relay a strike location, and less than that before they moved the kid. If she called in the coordinates now, the strike would take out the cash, but they would kill him in retaliation. She closed her eyes. For a moment she wasn't on a ridge in the Rockies. She was 17 again, on her bedroom floor, holding her sister's hand as she bled, wishing the police had come 5 minutes sooner. Wishing someone, anyone, had chosen life over procedure. And she made her choice. She pressed the radio to her lips. "This is Phantom," she whispered. "I have eyes on a live American captive. Confirm intel compromised. Mission parameters secondary to extraction." Silence. Then, "Say again, Phantom. You are not cleared for extract." "I'm extracting the kid," Ava said, her voice no longer a whisper. "I repeat, proceeding to isolate and recover hostage." "Phantom, this is a direct deviation. Abort extraction." Click. She pressed her gloved hand to Echo's thick ruff. "Time to earn our keep, partner." Echo lifted his head and loosed the quietest of low growls. Not fear. Focus. Ava slid her rifle onto her shoulder, checked the magazine in her sidearm, pulled a bolt cutter from her pack. The wind made her small in the maw of the mountain. She didn't care. "Tonight," she whispered, "we disrupt the world." And like a whisper against the storm, she and Echo disappeared, melting into the night. The snow was a living thing. It moved like it wanted them gone, like it was working on behalf of the men with guns. But Ava Hartley didn't flinch. She moved through the whiteout with the poise of a creature carved from it. Silent, efficient, as if the harshness only sharpened her focus. Echo slinked beside her, each paw placed with surgical precision, body low, breath fogging in soft puffs. His fur caught the glints of moonlight like sable steel. They were 200 yards from the chain-link perimeter. Ava counted breaths, not seconds. 1 breath. Kneel to snow. 2nd. Eyes on the guard rotation. 3rd. Fingers to bolt cutter. The padlock on the fence was no smarter than the men it guarded. A few snips, a controlled bend, and she made a gap just wide enough for a human and a canine. "Clear," she whispered. Echo slipped through first. Ava followed. The compound stank of spilled oil and cheap liquor. Smoke curled above the main hut from a rusted chimney. She heard laughter from inside, the kind that didn't come from joy, but dominance. She didn't look. She kept her eyes on the bunker near the tree line, the holding cell, the place where a terrified kid was waiting for someone who might never come. But tonight someone would. Ava pressed her body against the side of a storage shed. 2 guards stood outside the concrete bunker. One, broad, heavy-set, with a patchy beard and a rifle he held like a prop. The other, sharp-faced, cigarette dangling, jittery. She'd seen both types before. Brute strength, brute fear. She tapped Echo behind the ear, a firm signal. Flank, quiet. Echo vanished, like shadows swallowed him whole. It was time. She stepped out. "Hey," Ava said. The nervous guard turned first. His cigarette fell into the snow as his wide eyes landed on a masked figure in tactical black, holding what looked like a ghostly whisper of a pistol with a suppressor. "What the?" He didn't finish. A muted thwip. The round hit center chest. The big man swung his rifle up, confusion etched deep before Ava crossed the distance, grabbing the barrel and twisting with trained violence. His finger wasn't even near the trigger before she caved his windpipe with a gloved elbow. He fell. Breath came out in a gurgle. Echo returned at her side, jaws stained with a trace of snow and adrenaline. No sound. No hesitation. Ava knelt, checking the guards for keys. One had them in his pocket. Good. No time for bolt cutters. She slid the heavy key into the frozen padlock. It clicked open. The steel door groaned. The smell hit her first. Mold, cold sweat, fear. Then she saw him. The boy was slumped against the wall, wrists bound, head down. His hair was a matted tangle of blonde and blood. He flinched at the door's opening, like he was bracing for another blow. Her voice came soft, but firm. "Shane Miller?" He looked up, and she saw it. The kind of terror that hadn't broken him yet, because the world hadn't given him enough time to surrender. "Yes," he rasped. Who are you?" "My name's Ava Hartley. I'm with federal SWAT. I'm here to get you home." His eyes shimmered, not with relief, with disbelief. You're real." "In a bad mood, too. Let's go." She cut the zip ties around his wrists. His hands were blue from the cold, trembling so badly he couldn't stand. Ava slung his arm over her shoulder. "Can you walk?" He nodded, even though he couldn't. She grabbed a protein bar from her pouch and shoved it into his hands. Eat. It'll wake your blood up. He unwrapped it with fingers that barely cooperated, before biting down like he hadn't tasted food in days. Meanwhile, Echo stayed at the door, ears like radar, body coiled and listening to the world outside. Ava whispered low, like confessing to a ghost. This wasn't part of the mission, but now you are. Shane nodded, a quiet tear running down through the grime on his cheek. She pulled him and the dog toward the tree line again. That was when the siren sounded. A blast of red and white split the night, followed by the screech of metal scraping against ice. They know, Shane gasped. No, Ava corrected, her voice even. They suspect. And then, the floodlights snapped on. The world exploded into blinding white. Men poured out of the barracks, shouts in thick Russian accents. Snow crunched under heavy boots. Echo growled, loud now, baring teeth meant for war. Run, Ava said. Don't look back. Shane saw the dog's eyes and obeyed. Ava turned and fired 2 quick shots, taking out the closest lights. Shadows folded back over them. They ran. Snow grabbed at Shane's legs like unforgiving claws. I can't, he gasped. You can, she snapped. Pain's just doubt leaving your body. He forced his legs to move again, because she was right. Because that dog was still moving. Because someone had decided to bet their life on his. That was when the gunfire started. Bullets shaved the air inches from their bodies. Shane ducked. Ava grabbed the back of his shirt and hauled him into a thicket of trees. Quiet. Move with the wind. She checked the magazine. 7 rounds left. Shane's breath hitched. You're not going to leave, are you? Ava's eyes narrowed but softened, just slightly. I don't leave civilians. I don't leave kids. And him? Shane managed, nodding at Echo. Echo was already beside her, chest rising, eyes bright and unbroken. He's the one who'd leave me behind if I slowed him down, Ava answered. That made Shane smile. Made it small, but real. The wind howled again, like it remembered it had a job to finish. This way, she said. And the 3 of them disappeared into the tree line, together. The forest swallowed them whole. Ava led, her steps fluid but intentional. Snow crunched in a rhythm that no longer belonged to the hunters behind them, but to the hunted. Echo padded beside her, body close to the ground, ears flicking from left to right, like tuning forks catching danger in its purest vibration. Behind them, Shane Miller stumbled, half falling forward through the crusted snow. His breath tore from him in rapid bursts, his boots soaked through. Fingers numb, ankles screaming. But he followed, because even amidst the echoes of gunfire and hounds, there was a rhythm to her command. Ava Hartley didn't need to shout. She didn't need to look back. Her presence pulled him forward as surely as a lifeline. They didn't stop for 2 full minutes. To a body wrecked by cold and trauma, 2 minutes was a small hell. To Ava, it was a calendar. Finally, she slid behind a line of boulders and raised her hand. Stop. Shane collapsed into the snow. His lungs clawed for air. Move less, Ava instructed quietly. Breathe through your nose. Shane sputtered. I can't feel my... Good, she cut him off. Means you can still feel. He gave a humorless laugh. That's comforting. She peered through a gap in the rocks. They're sweeping the lower slope, she said. Flashlight patterns are random. Dog handlers are separated by at least 50 yards. Undisciplined. Shane blinked, processing. She sounded annoyed, like someone complaining about spilled coffee, not being hunted by armed men. Echo pressed his nose into Shane's gloved palm, a steadying gesture, not a request. The boy lifted his eyes, meeting Ava's. "Why would you risk everything for me?" There it was. The unspoken thought made flesh. Ava didn't answer right away. Her gaze was fixed on the dark grid of the forest beyond. Her breath was frost on the night. "My sister," she finally said. Shane waited. She was killed by someone who was supposed to protect her. Nobody came. Nobody chose her. That's not happening again. Not on my watch. Her voice was measured, not shaking, not dramatic, but it lived in the quiet space between what she said and what she never would. Shane nodded. He didn't say thank you. He didn't need to. A different kind of language bound them now. This strange family, born out of the worst kind of night. Far behind them, a howl cut through the trees. The hounds, getting closer. Echo's tail stiffened. His ears went forward like sentries. "They've picked up the trail," Ava murmured. How do we outrun them?" "We don't outrun," she said. "We outthink." She knelt in the snow, unzipping her tactical pouch. From inside she pulled a black length of cord and a military-grade carabiner. Time to complicate their math. Shane stared, confused. Echo understood immediately. He stepped obediently between them, tail lifted, chest out. Ava looped the cord around her waist twice. Secured. It with a hitch, then looped the other end around Shane's chest. "Wait, what are you doing?" Shane stammered. "You're not collapsing in the snow again. We move together. Echo anchors us." She clicked the carabiner to the metal D-ring on Echo's harness. "Echo gets ahead of us, we follow his line. He can see and smell things we can't. We let him lead." "You trust him that much?" Ava glanced down at the dog who was watching her. "I've trusted him with my life longer than I've trusted most people with my name." And then she leaned close enough for her words to sink beneath bone. "If you go down, we all go down. Understand?" Shane nodded. Cold sweat mixed with tears he didn't get to feel fully. The next 30 minutes were the longest of his life. Echo moved through the trees like an arrow loosed from nothingness. Ava followed, posture low, rifle across her arms, eyes watching the spaces between trees, not the trees themselves. Shane struggled to keep pace, the cord keeping him from falling backward, but also forcing him to face forward. One foot, then another. The forest thinned, the mountain collapsed into open night. And there it was. A river. Black, furious, bordered by ice like shattered glass. A living divide between life and death. "No," Shane whispered. "No way." "It's the only way," Ava said. I can't swim." "You won't," she said flatly. "Echo will." Even Echo seemed to react, head turning to Ava, chest rising with instinct before duty. "Listen," she continued, kneeling slightly so Shane would look her in the eye. "The current will wash the scent. The dogs can't track across rivers. They'll lose us completely." "But I'll die." "Not if you stay calm." "Calm?" That's an order." Her voice snapped like a field commander. Shane froze, heart pounding with something bigger than fear. Submission to someone who'd already decided to save him, even if he pushed against it. She lashed the rope tighter around his chest. "You go unconscious, we drag you. You panic, you make it worse. Trust Echo. Trust me." Echo stepped into the water first. No hesitation. His body braced against the violence of the current, chest cutting into the torrent, muscles hard under fur. "Okay," Ava said, pulling Shane forward. "Now or never." They didn't jump. They slid in. And the world stopped. The cold wasn't water. It was fire. It punched Shane in the chest, collapsing his lungs in one violent blow. He screamed, but water swallowed the sound. His body bucked against instinct. He sank. The rope snapped tight across his ribs. He surfaced, coughing, screaming. "Stop fighting!" Ava shouted, voice torn by the roar of the river. "Let the water carry you!" Shane's eyes were wide, teeth chattering so hard blood was in his gums. Ava was beside him, one hand gripping the rope, the other dragging a paddle stroke through the waves. Echo swam before them, unrelenting. The rope held them in single file, a life chain. Every second was agony. Every breath was earned. And then, the bank. A ledge of ice and river rock broke the current's pull. Ava hauled Shane up with both arms, teeth gritted, legs shaking. Echo collapsed beside them, lungs heaving, fur soaked and heavy. Shane lay on his back, staring at the sky. Alive. Barely. The boy looked over at the dog, who had already gotten back to his feet, shaking out his coat, ready for the next order. His voice came out broken, a whisper through cracked lips. "He saved me." Ava knelt over him, pulling out a fire start kit, shaking but defiant. "No," she said. "We saved each other." And in the howling dark, with the river between them and the men who wanted them dead, a fire was sparked. A bond was forged, and a war, for the first time, felt winnable. Dawn came without warning, not in color, but in the way it took shape through absence. The stars dimmed, the forest exhaled, the wind went from screaming to simply existing, still cold, still brutal, but beatable. Ava Hartley opened her eyes before the first light touched the top of the ridge. She didn't sleep. Her body had shut down for 11 minutes, the kind of tactical rest taught in the kind of place where emotional softness wasn't a permission. Now she was awake. Fully. Echo lay against Shane's side, a living source of heat. Shane's lips were pale, but his breathing was steady. His clothes, still damp from the river, steamed faintly from proximity to Echo's fur. Ava reached forward and pressed her palm lightly along the dog's rib cage. His heartbeat thrummed beneath her fingertips. Solid. Strong. "You did good, boy," she whispered. "Real good." Echo nudged her hand, as if to tell her, "Not done yet." They weren't. The fire they'd built behind the shelter of a granite boulder had long burned to embers. Ava buried it beneath snow, scattering the ash. Leave no trace. Every move still mattered. Her body ached, but she ignored it. The mission was no longer just hers. It wasn't even a mission anymore. It was a promise. A rustle. Shane stirred, blinking at the morning light. His teeth chattered before the world processed in. "Where are we?" he mumbled. "Still alive," Ava replied. and not done moving. Shane pushed himself up, groaning as his muscles protested. The ache was deep, in marrow and memory. Everything about him felt borrowed. "I thought that river would kill me," he murmured. "It wanted to," Ava said, tightening the strap on her tactical vest. "But you didn't let it." "That's because you—" "No," she cut in sharply, then softer. "That's because you stopped fighting." He let that sink in. It wasn't praise, it was truth. Echo stood, shaking out a dusting of frost from his coat. His ears pricked forward. There it was again. That alertness Ava had learned to ride like sonar. She turned her head, scanning the slope below. And she saw it. Smoke. Thin, greedy, climbing upward from a break in the trees a quarter-mile away. Too black to be morning cook fire. Too recent to be old. "We need to move," she said. Shane gasped. "Is that them?" "Yes." They crossed the river upstream, on foot, probably with snowcats or rope guides. That fire is for warmth, not cooking. Which means they're recovering. Which means they're coming. Shane swallowed hard. "Are we close to help?" Ava didn't lie. "No." She slung her pack onto her back and pulled out a folded topographic map encased in weatherproof laminate. "We're here." She pointed to a gnarled ink marking on the map. "Our extraction point is 2 clicks due north, upslope. That's where aviation can reach us. It's a clearing with enough diameter for drop or evac hoist." "And what about them?" Ava didn't look up from the map. "They'll try to intercept us before then." Shane wrapped the emergency blanket tighter around himself, shoulders high from the cold. "And what chance do we have?" Ava folded the map, looked him in the eye for the first time that morning. "On our own? Rough." She crouched next to him. Her voice, when it came, carried no rank. "Just resolve. But we're not on our own." Echo padded over, leaned his head against Shane's knee. They held each other's gaze, not as rescuer and rescued, but as the only 2 people who still understood what war they were in. They broke camp with silence. Ava walked at point. Every few steps she checked wind direction, light angle, and terrain. She paused at ridge lines, looking for movement. Echo ranged ahead no more than 15 feet, but every shift in his posture was information. Shane limped behind, one arm draped through a strap Ava had fashioned into a makeshift shoulder support. His ankle was swollen but braced under a compression bandage. "Watch your steps," Ava warned. "Don't break the crust." She demonstrated, placing her full heel gently but firmly onto the snow, controlling the shift of weight so it bent, not broke, the frozen surface. To Shane, it felt like trying to learn ballet on a frozen mountain. To Ava, it was survival choreography, the kind that only fools or heroes mastered. They reached a natural ledge of rock when Echo suddenly stopped. His tail stiffened. A low growl, barely audible, vibrated in his chest. Ava immediately hit the ground, rifle raised. Shane followed her lead, half collapsing. "What? What is it?" he whispered. Ava didn't answer. She didn't need to. Echo was already staring across the open gap toward a slope on the other side of a ravine. And Shane saw it too. A glint of glass. The optics of a rifle. A sniper. Shane's throat closed. "Ava." "Down slope," she commanded, already shifting her weight. But he was too slow. The shot cracked the air, not a pop. A violent atmospheric tear. Ava shoved Shane behind a rock just as the bullet chewed snow inches from where his skull had been. The second shot never came, because Echo moved first. Not toward the danger, but toward Ava, as if he knew that her falling meant everything else crumbled. Ava pushed her back against the stone. Her breathing didn't quicken. Her eyes didn't widen. "What do we do?" Shane whispered, voice shaking. Ava calculated zones in her mind: wind speed, distance, firing angle. She needed cover and repositioning. Fast. "He's 500 yards, she said. "Left ridge. He's had time to settle. He'll relocate after 2 shots if he's smart." "Smart like you?" "No," she muttered. "He's not that smart." She turned to Echo. "Smoke cover. Plan Delta." Echo growled affirmatively, then sprinted toward the left, low and fast, a blur of muscle and winter shadow. Shane stared, horrified. "He's going to draw fire!" Ava primed a smoke canister and pulled the pin. "That's the plan." She lobbed it across the open snow, smoke belching outward. Instantly, the white became gray, then thick. And that was when Echo reappeared, charging back toward Ava from the opposite side in a perfect cross pattern, forcing the sniper to choose. It took less than 4 seconds. 1 shot. Missed. Another shot. Wild. Then, silence. Shane was shaking. "That dog is insane," he whispered. "No," Ava said, crawling forward through the billowing cloud. "He's tactical." She motioned to Shane. "Stay here. Keep your head down." "What do you—" She didn't answer. She moved. She didn't just walk through the smoke. She used it. Her steps calculated against echo and stone, changes in wind direction marking the sniper's possible relocations. Ava Hartley didn't fight the mountain. She became its ghost. Echo, circling wide, snarled once. That was enough. Ava swung left, duck-rolled along the snow, raised her rifle. 1 shot. This time, it wasn't a warning. The man on the ridge folded backward into the snow, scope still in hand. Silence burst open again. This time, it didn't scream. It bowed. She returned to Shane, who sat with his head in his hands, shaking with something more complicated than fear, more painful than cold. "You could have died," he said, voice raw. "Yes," Ava replied. "So stay close." He looked at her, stunned, then looked at Echo, who shoved his wet nose against Shane's cheek. From somewhere between grief and gratitude, Shane laughed. Really laughed. It was broken and whimpering, but alive. "We're going to make it," he whispered. Ava stood, checking her compass. "No," she said. "We're going to make this matter." Then she turned north, and they climbed, not just toward rescue, but toward purpose. Night didn't fall on the ridge. It stalked. It waited until the light was fragile, until breath fogged into frost, until hope thinned like the last thread of a frayed rope. Ava Hartley knew the signs. They weren't just being hunted anymore. They were being herded. Echo paced with increasing agitation. His ears no longer flicked. They pinned back, stiff and alert, like the forest itself was whispering secrets only he could hear. Ava scanned the horizon through her night vision scope. The mountain above them was bare, stripped of shelter. Their extraction point sat on a cruel outcrop of jagged limestone more suited for mountain goats than people. 2 more hours, she thought. That's all we need. But the mountain had decided otherwise. Shane Miller's steps were uneven, his face hollow with exhaustion. His ankle throbbed with every shift in the snow. The rope Ava had used to lead him was gone, but the dependency wasn't. He followed her because some part of him had decided to trust her beyond logic. Maybe because no one else ever had. "How much further?" he whispered. "3/4 of a mile," Ava replied without breaking stride. "But steep." He nodded, chest rising and falling sharp. "Okay, I can make that." She didn't say the thing she was thinking. "You don't have a choice anymore. Neither do I." It was then that Echo stopped dead. Ava stopped with him. 3 seconds later, the first shot landed. Not near them, not past them, behind them. It wasn't a warning shot. It was a claim. They heard the echo of boots, faint but disciplined, followed by the cold snarl of voices speaking Russian. And dogs. Shane collapsed to one knee, breath stuttering. They caught up. Ava turned just long enough to look down slope. Movement. 6 figures. Tactical winter gear. Carbines. One of them held a flashlight which cut through the dark like a blade. And off to the left, another figure. Not moving with the others. Sniper. Ava didn't curse. She didn't panic. She did something worse. She planned. "Shane, come here." Her voice was low, tight. "I need you to listen." Shane dragged himself upright, trembling. "Ava, no fear," she snapped. "Not now." He shut his mouth, swallowed hard. "You're going to crouch behind that rock outcrop halfway up this next incline. You're going to stay low. They won't risk grenades this close to their own sniper line." "And you?" Shane asked. Ava looked up toward the edge of the ridge, a broken plateau against the bleeding sky. "I'm going to take out their point man before they set up crossfire." "You'll get pinned." "That depends on how fast you move." Shane's voice cracked. "Ava, no. I'm not worth." She gripped his jacket hard, knuckles white. "You do not decide your value. Not tonight." Echo moved beside her, silent as a ghost, every sense alive. Shane's eyes burned. He wanted to cry. He didn't. He ran. The mountain swallowed Shane into its cold lungs. Ava took 2 deep breaths, adjusted the rifle sling on her shoulder, and turned toward the wind, toward the danger she'd already accepted as hers. "Echo," she said. The dog met her eyes. "Guard," she commanded softly. Echo didn't move toward Shane. He didn't move toward safety. He moved with Ava, because some loyalties are written in instinct. She peered over a boulder, lining her sights toward the approaching shadows. 2 figures. Too close. Too synced. She settled her aim, squeezed. 1 down. Before the other could react, Echo leaped over the rock, a blur of steel, fur, and teeth. The man screamed, cut off midair as Echo took his throat in one brutal motion. A metallic growl echoed against the rock. But too late. The shot was heard. From above, the sniper fired. Ava dove. The bullet shattered stone inches from her skull. "Location change, now!" she shouted. Echo didn't hesitate. He bounded sideways behind a rise of snow-covered granite. Another shot. Another missed opportunity. But the flankers were getting closer. Ava needed distance. She peeled back, kept low, fired when she had to, moved when she didn't. Cold. Focus. Precision. Her lungs burned. Her gear was heavier now, wet and crusted from the river, stiff from the cold. Her body begged for rest. She didn't hear it. The ridge opened to a small plateau, just a dozen more feet. She scrambled up the incline. And then, the world exploded. A flash of white, a roar. Something slammed into her ribs. She crashed backward down the slope, snow erupting around her like a wave, lungs screaming. Her back hit a buried boulder, stars bursting behind her eyelids. Gasping, dazed. She blinked. Gunshot? No. Grenade. Smart. She tried to move. Ava! It wasn't the enemy. It wasn't her own voice. It was Shane. He was halfway down the slope, crawling toward her like a man daring the earth to break him. "What are you doing?" she choked, forcing herself upward. "Helping you," he said, voice shaking but steady. "Like you helped me." She stared at him, then at Echo, standing at her side, guarding while blood trickled from a sharp graze on his flank. One word sat between them. Together. She nodded, slow. "Okay. Then we climb." They moved. Every step was a negotiation with gravity and pain. Echo led. Ava shielded. Shane stumbled, but didn't stop. Behind them, the enemy regrouped. A shout went up. They had been marked. They had become the objective again, for all the wrong reasons. The only shelter came as a cruel gift, a jagged spine of rock near the summit, barely large enough to crouch behind. Ava slid down with Shane beside her. Echo curled tight in the snow, chest heaving. She heard the shouts below, closer now. She checked her ammo, 4 rounds. That was it. Shane saw the look in her eyes, the truth. "You're not going to hold them off alone," he said, voice shaking. "No," she answered. "I'm going to buy time." Shane's throat closed. "For what?" She looked at him, frost in her eyelashes, blood on her sleeve. "For extraction. For Echo. For you. You're insane," he whispered. She gave him a thin, tired smile. "No, I'm free." Their eyes met, a clarity passing between them that didn't need words. Echo lifted his head, whined, a small, broken sound. Ava reached over, pressed her forehead to his. "If I don't make it, stay with him," she whispered. Echo whined again, louder. "No," Shane said quietly. "No one's dying up here tonight." Ava blinked. He reached into her pack, pulled out the flare pistols she'd stowed, held it out to her. "You get us that bird," he said. "I'll hold them." But she didn't take it. She stared at him, at the boy who'd been kidnapped, tortured, almost drowned, who still stood, even when he had nothing. Then she took the flare gun and fired it into the sky. Red erupted into the darkness above them like a wound screaming for help. Snow lit blood crimson. And below them, they heard it, a roar. Not from men, from rotors. And hope. The flare sizzled against the sky like a burning piece of the world being torn free. Crimson light painted the snow in blood. The wind caught it, lifting the dying glow upward until it vanished behind the jagged skyline. Ava lowered her arm. The flare gun fell from her glove and disappeared into the snow. "It's done," she said. Then the mountain shook. The sound tore across the ridge, the deep, terrifying beat of rotors rolling through the air like thunder. a Black Hawk helicopter. Not hovering, advancing. Closer. A lifeline. Shane's chest trembled with something between relief and terror. And Ava, the seasoned operator, the one with eyes shaped by grief and letdown and duty, closed hers briefly, as if offering a silent bargain to a god she didn't know how to believe in anymore. But time had never been a friend. "Move!" she commanded. Shane staggered to his feet. Ava hooked her arm around him to support his balance. Echo came to her other side, a shadow pacing her steps. They broke from behind the rock just as the Black Hawk nose appeared between the ravine's bleak spires. The searchlight powered on, a pillar of white that cut the night in half. Over radio static, a voice crackled, clear and merciless. "Phantom, this is Guardian 3, 15 seconds to drop point. Hostile activity confirmed on thermal, sit rep." Ava raised the mic, clipped to her vest. "Guardian," she gritted, out of breath, eyes scanning the ridge for movement. "This is Phantom. 3 souls for extraction. 1 civilian, 1 K9, 1 operator. Hostile contact imminent." "Copy that. Bird holding position." They were 30 feet from the extraction zone. No cover. All slope. Below, a shout. Gunfire. The Volkov men had reached firing range again. Snow exploded at Ava's feet. Bullets rattled off granite spurs like hail against metal. "Keep your head down!" she barked. Shane gasped, ducking just as a round sailed past his ear, close enough to bite off a wisper of blonde hair. Echo snarled, stepping in front of Ava, hackles raised, body lowered. A silent promise that no one would harm her as long as he breathed. She raised her rifle over the slope, positioned near a broken boulder, and opened fire with decisive precision. 3 shots. 2 men dropped. A third scrambled for cover. "Echo, mark!" Ava shouted. The German Shepherd launched like a missile. No hesitation, no fear. He bounded down the snowbank, weaving through the chaos, barking with teeth bared, driving the attackers off mark, buying them seconds. Shane watched with awe and horror all at once. "He's going to get killed out there." "He's not out there," Ava replied, calm, eyes pinned on her partner. "He's between us and death. That's where he's always chosen to be." Another wave of gunshots. Ava grabbed Shane's shoulder, turning him away. "Guardian, now! We need dust off." 2 minutes to winch. Hold." 2 minutes. They didn't have 2 minutes. A shot cracked. The sound was different. More skill, more weight. Ava's eyes narrowed. Sniper. She froze, instinct and training tightening every muscle. Her gaze swept the ridge opposite. A sliver of reflective glass flickered at the tree line. "Down!" Ava yelled. Shane ducked. Ava dropped. Echo. Echo moved. The sniper fired. The bullet didn't hit Ava. It never got the chance. Echo slammed into her side with impossible speed, fur colliding with armor, a lunge so fast it broke reality in half. The impact knocked Ava down, but Echo didn't get up. There was no bark, no growl, just a sound Ava had never heard before. A wet, broken exhale. The kind the body makes when it's not sure if it still belongs to the world. "Echo?" Ava gasped. Everything slowed. She saw the wound, dark blood staining thick winter fur, steaming against cold. Ava dropped her rifle. She dropped her rage. She dropped the mission and crawled to her dog. "No," she whispered. One word, a plea, a curse, a song of grief. "Echo," she choked out. "No, not you. Not now. Not like this." She pressed her hands to his wound, fingers shaking uncontrollably. Blood covered her gloves, her mask, her breath. Echo's eyes flickered. His chest rose, then fell. Again. Barely. He saved you," Shane stuttered, crawling over, eyes wild with terror and awe. Ava didn't move. She couldn't. She pulled her glove off with her teeth and pressed her bare hand to Echo's rib cage. His heartbeat was weak, broken, but there. She clenched her jaw, the composure gone. The shield cracked. Beneath it was not the cold, unshakable operator the world had built for her to be. It was just Ava, human, shaking. He's my partner," she whispered through fractured breath. "He's everything I never deserved." More gunfire. Echo's ears twitched. A soft, strangled whine. That was enough. Ava's world snapped back into motion. She looked up. Her eyes, not icy now, but burning. "Shane," she rasped, voice vibrating like a struck wire. "Take my pack. Every piece of intel in it. Get it to the bird. What about go?" She tore the medical pouch from her vest, dropping to her knees beside Echo, shredding gauze, packing it into the wound, sealing the flow with trembling pressure. "Guardian," she growled into the mic, voice thick and dangerous. "Medevac priority for K9. He is bleeding out." A pause. Then, "Copy that. K9 priority confirmed. Send coordinates. Prepare for hoist." Her fingers pressed deeper. Blood soaked through gauze, into creases of her knuckles, into the snow, pink, and then red, and then grief-colored. She saw it again. The moment Echo leapt, not away from the danger, but toward it. A choice, not instinct. Love. "You're going to stay with me," Ava whispered fiercely, face inches from her partner's muzzle. "You hear me? Stay with me." A paw twitched, a breath hitched. Echo was still fighting. She packed the wound tighter, pressed until her own hands were numb. "God! Don't you quit on me!" she screamed into the cold. Then, the wind roared. Rotor wash. The Black Hawk banked above the ridge, sending snow into tornadoes around them. A voice through the roar. "Litter coming down! Secure patient and send up first!" A steel-framed litter descended on the hoist, attached to a recoil-resistant cable. Two medics leaned out the door, silhouettes in goggles and gloves. Ava didn't hesitate. She scooped Echo into her arms, the weight of him both comforting and breaking her bones at the same time. She placed him in the litter, secured the straps, crying through her teeth with rage and helpless love. "Lift him!" she screamed. The hoist engaged. Echo was lifted into the air, body limp but still alive. Ava didn't watch. She turned to the slope below, eyes burning with a kind of fury no tactical manual could train out of a person. Shane clung to the rope behind her, staring back, pale with shock. "What now?" he asked. Ava reloaded her rifle. "Now?" She stood. "We finish this." The helicopter's rotors thundered overhead, not just in the wind, but in Ava Hartley's bones. Every bone, every breath, every memory of every mission that shouldn't have ended with someone like her holding on to someone like him and whispering, "Stay with me." But Echo was gone from her arms now, lifted, secured, out of reach, suspended between the snow and a sky that didn't care whether he lived or died. And Ava, the person who had always controlled the odds, the angles, the entry points, had no control left. "Echo!" she shouted upward, even though the sound was obliterated by the wind and the wash of the Black Hawk as it hovered in its guarded descent. She didn't see him now, only the litter being pulled inside, only the medics leaning over, only the last chance she had already given. Now came the part she didn't get to choose. Letting go. "Phantom, we've got your canine," the medic yelled through the intercom. "Next lift for the package and the operator." But Ava wasn't looking at the sky anymore. She was looking down the ravine, where snow shifted under boots, where shadows closed in at the edges of the light, where every man Volkov sent was coming to kill the one thing Ava had left to lose, her word. Behind her, Shane crouched low against the ridge's broken rock. His fingers were white on the rope cable as he prepared to be lifted. He wasn't just frightened now. He was changed. He didn't speak in tremors anymore. "Are we both going up on this lift?" he asked, calm. "No," Ava said, voice clear, final. "You go next. I stay." Shane stared at her, jaw hanging open. "No. No, Ava. You did your part. You save Echo. You get on that chopper." "And leave someone behind? That's not my story, Shane. Not tonight." Fear passed through his eyes, followed by something else. A dawning realization. "You're not just saving lives out here," he whispered. "You're redeeming one." Her eyes flicked to him, softened just a fraction. "Maybe." She didn't finish the thought, because the first man crested the slope. She fired, one shot, one collapse. "Guardian," she barked into her radio. "Incoming hostiles from the South Ridge. Sniper neutralized, but I've got 5 more closing." "Copy that, Phantom," came the pilot's voice. "Prep for emergency exfil, 30 seconds. 30 seconds. A lifetime. Or a death sentence. From the tree line below, another muzzle flash spit fire. Bullets bit the snow beside her boots. Shane gasped, covering his head instinctively. But Ava? She dropped into a half-kneel, rifle steady, eyes clear. She fired again, and again, and once more. 3 more bodies feathered the snow. She breathed hard, not from fear, from knowing what came next. Something past rage, past exhaustion, past logic. The men below disappeared behind a swell of white, regrouping, reloading, snarling like wolves starved long enough to forget their names. Ava braced, herself behind a rock, pulled a fresh magazine, shoved it into her rifle with practiced brutality. "Go!" she shouted at Shane. He hesitated. Go!" It wasn't a command. It was a confession. She was going to stay behind. Not because she wanted to die, but because she knew someone had to stay alive long enough for meaning to exist in the saving. Shane's eyes swelled, but he didn't argue. He screamed into the rotor wash, "Don't you let go! Not ever!" She didn't reply. The hoist cable lowered. Shane clipped in, and he began to rise. Ava's shadow grew longer on the ridge as the Black Hawk's spotlight swallowed him, lifting him out of hell. He watched her the whole way up. Watched Ava Hartley take one last defensive position. Watched her shoulders square and her heartbeat slow. Watched her become what she had always been made to be. Not a hero, not an angel. A wall. As soon as he was high enough, he shouted down, "You better come home! You better!" She didn't look back. She heard him. She heard everything. A new surge of attackers crested the slope, shooting wild, forcing her behind stone. She turned, braced her rifle against the rock, and fired again into the night. 2 more bodies dropped. She had no idea how many were left, didn't care. She'd grown up wanting to control her life. Now she just wanted to control this moment. For the boy who trusted her. For the dog who gave her something like a soul again. And for the sister she couldn't save. This time the outcome was different. This time she wasn't late. She wasn't the last line of defense. She was the only one. And then a voice crackled in her ear. "Phantom, you're on your own. Last cable lowering. Repeat, last cable. You got 10 seconds. Her eyes widened. 10 seconds. She could stay. Or she could climb. For the first time, she hesitated. Echo wasn't dead. Shane wasn't broken. Someone somewhere had turned the rest of her life into something still unwritten. Her hand curled around the cable. The snow behind her blew into white flame under muzzle flash. She screamed into the storm as she grabbed the line. "I'm not done yet!" The cable jerked. She rose just as 5 shots ripped through the air in unison, tearing the night into ribbons, biting sparks off steel and stone. The world shrunk to one sound, the thunder of the chopper's blades. And that single promise pounding in her chest. I keep what I save. Sunlight poured through the window. A familiar sound, a soft thump of tail against mattress, filled the room. There he was. Echo. Shaved fur along his side, neat stitches forming a crescent where the bullet had passed through. A patch of pink skin peeking out from beneath a soft blanket. His eyes opened when the door swung wide. Ava stood there, left arm in a sling, hair longer, like she hadn't cut it since the ridge. A stillness in her eyes that wasn't cold, just awake. Echo's ears twitched, and then he wagged his tail, hard, once, twice, then wildly, like joy had been waiting in him all this time, too patient to die. Ava crossed the room, dropped to one knee, pressed her forehead to his brow, voice breaking as she whispered, "You stayed." Behind her, Shane appeared in the doorway, books under one arm, cast on his ankle, smile on his face. She looked up at him. He nodded. "Yeah," he said softly. "We all did." And in that quiet room full of warmth and broken things learning to heal, they finally exhaled, together. In the end, this wasn't a story about war, but about the courage it takes to love in the middle of it. Ava fought to save a stranger. Echo leapt to save the one he loved. And together, they proved that victory is found in sacrifice, not survival alone. If this story moved you, please like, share, comment below, and subscribe to the channel so more hearts can be touched. May God always watch over you, protect your steps, and surround you with love as loyal as Echo's. Amen.